Hello, everybody, and welcome. This is the JohnnyCast Sports Show. I'm your host, as you know, Johnny Kith. I want to thank you for listening, and I also would plead and urge you to hit that subscribe button, maybe throw me a like. Now, let's get into a couple things, but before I do, I want to make an announcement. So it's been this last week and a half, I've been fumbling around with OBS Live Studio for quite some time now, and it's been miserable. I mean, I am not a producer in any shape or form, and I mean, it was just so tedious and brutal, but I figured it out. I figured out how to have audio for guests to come on when you're live streaming, all that jazz. So make a long story short, now, every single Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday for 1 hour, I will be live streaming a sports show where guests can call in. You can write on the chat. You can do whatever you please, but it's going to be awesome. So Tuesday, Thursday at 8:30 p.m., and then Saturday mornings at 10:30 a.m. So looking very forward to that. And then on top of all those shows, I have my typical, usual JohnnyCast, which is probably coming out on Fridays, every Friday, about a 45-minute episode. Just me airing my grievances, shooting the shit and talking about some pop culture stuff that's going on, stuff that annoys me, stuff that I love, yada, yada, yada. So let's get into it. So last week we had really a couple good games, a couple kind of shitty games. And it all started with Kansas City and Jacksonville. So spoiler alert, I lost my first pick because I had Kansas City covering. And I mean, talk about a stab in the chest. I mean, that's a backdoor cover if I've ever seen one. You have the Chiefs just rolling on them, and then Mahomes gets hurt. But then Henny comes in, 90-something yard drive, and he boom, 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 dink and dunk, and they score a touchdown. You're saying, oh, okay, we're fine. But Jacksonville, they stick around, they stay in it. I got to credit Doug Peterson, I got to credit Trevor Lawrence. And, I mean, to have that field goal break that spread, Brutes Magoo, okay? Absolutely Brutes Magoo. Mahomes is fucking limping around, hobbling around. They should have let him sit on the bench. I don't know what they were doing, but it is what it is. They had a playoff game to play. And listen, if I'm Andy Reid, I'm not telling Mahomes, I'm not telling him anything. He can do whatever he wants. So that was an unfortunate one. Next game, as I stated earlier, as I stated in the last podcast, just the Eagles just outclassed the Giants. That's nothing to take away from the Giants. I still think they got a relatively bright future. The coaching staff looks great. I do like Daniel Jones. But, I mean, it was so clear as day. The hype around Daniel Jones after the Minnesota game. Listen, I understand he had a good year. I understand he didn't turn the ball over that much this year. But, I mean, to crown him like he was literally Josh Allen after having a good game against Minnesota, who is just known for being perennial choke artist, is a joke, okay? When you're facing a D-line like Philadelphia, it's just going to look different, especially when you're there on the road. This isn't Minnesota, okay? You're in the link. This is way different. So that game was just not enjoyable to watch. It was just a rout. Let's call a spade a spade. So now I'm 1 for 1. I was off on the Chiefs, correct on the Eagles. Now you flip into Sunday, and again, not the greatest watch. You'd think, again, Joe Burrow and Josh Allen would be an amazing watch, but let's call it how it is. Let's say what happened just objectively. Joe Burrow's a better quarterback than Josh Allen. Maybe Josh Allen has more untapped potential. Maybe he's more naturally gifted, however you want to spin it. Joe Burrow is a more poised, a more accurate, a more controlled, better quarterback, bottom line. And we saw it in that game. The Bills have been missing something. We discussed this last podcast. We know this. They've been kind of missing something the whole year, but I mean, the Bengals exposed them. They made them look like a joke, really. They weren't even close. They had their foot in their necks the whole game, and there was a moment, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, in the very late part of the first half where the Bills could have made it kind of interesting, but nothing happens, right? So that was an easy win for Johnny the Kid. And then you get into the last game, which is, I'll admit, I was flat out wrong. So you got Dallas and San Fran, and this kid, as they call him, Glock Purdy now, this kid, Brock Purdy, has been sticking it to me. He keeps proving me wrong. I keep doubting him. He's like 75-0 now as a starter. I mean, Jesus Christ. Sometimes he looks a little shaken, but then he gets right back up. He makes a big throw, and it doesn't hurt when George Kittle is making one-handed grabs in pivotal moments, but they got some talented roster over in San Francisco, and Dallas just was doing Dallas. I mean, Dak Prescott, I know everyone's saying it, but I'll echo that sentiment. I mean, Dak Prescott, the second he snaps the ball, he knows where he's throwing the ball. It's ridiculous. And when he's in the huddle calling the plays, he knows where he's throwing it. It's embarrassing. Figure it out, dude. I love Dak Prescott. I think he's a good guy. I think he has a lot of talent, but I mean, he's got to be better than that. And if you're Jerry Jones now, I understand you won your first playoff game on the road in like 80 years, since like Parcells or something. But if you're Jerry Jones, okay, you're about to be gone, bro. You're about to be chalked, all right? Get on the phone. This is me. If I'm Jerry Jones, I get on the phone with Sean Payton. Okay, I get on the phone with Sean Payton. I go, hey, Shawnee, it's Daddy. All right, I want you to come home. I want you to understand. I'm going to give you anything you want. We're going to trade for you. We're going to give New Orleans whatever they need. Mike McCarthy's as good as gone, and bring a title home to Daddy because I'm about to be 6 feet deep. All right, bring a title home to Daddy. Now, will they do that? Probably not. But it's a tough watch year in, year out with the Dallas Cowboys. And like now it's almost comical. It's almost like the Yankees kind of where they can have a good year or a good regular season. Who gives a shit? I mean, really, who cares until they actually do it? Until they actually do it, I thought maybe this could have been a year, but nope, same shit. So that's that. Now let's get into the games that are later on today. So again, this is nuts. It's 2:22. Great song by the Flatbush Zombies, by the way. It's 2:22 in the morning, I guess, on Sunday, on January 29th. So the first game that's up is the San Francisco 49ers against the Philadelphia Eagles, and I'm doing it again. I'm going against Brock Purdy. I'm doing it, okay? And I'll give you two reasons why. The first is kind of a weak argument because I said the same thing last game where I said, listen, Dallas is a better team than Seattle. But I'm going to say it again. Philadelphia is a better team than Dallas. They're just fully just better roster-wise. I think they're better coached. I think they have more swagger. And very important, this is going to be Brock Purdy's big game where he's not at home. When you're Brock Purdy and you got that defensive line, again, breathing down your neck, and you have the Philadelphia Eagles fans, we know how they are. They're throwing beer cans at horses and shit, at police horses. They're going to be rowdy, and it's going to be a tough environment. And it's not like the environment's tough, but the team isn't great. It's both. So I gotta take Philadelphia. I have to do it. And so I got Philly. I like them. I think what is it? I think it's -2.5. I believe. Yeah, I got Philly -2.5. And then you get to the game that I'm looking most forward to, which, man, what a game. And I'm going to tell you why. So, first of all, I don't care what Andy Reid says. Mahomes is not 100%. He's limping around. I don't care if he practiced 3 times this week. I don't care if yada, yada, yada. Mahomes is not 100%, and that's scary, I think, if you're a Chiefs fan. But we've seen crazier, okay? Mahomes is magical. Now, flip side, this is the first game, I think, in a while, because we know that Burrow always beats the Chiefs, and we know that now they're coming in with a lot of swagger and momentum and blah, blah, blah. But I think this is the first game where people truly believe that Burrow's going to beat Mahomes, right? Even though they're not favored in Vegas, I think it's 1.5 Chiefs, -1.5, and I really believe that people have faith that Burrow's going to beat him this time, and that scares me a little bit. That scares me that the Chiefs are, even though in Vegas, like I said, they're slight favorites, they are, for all intents and purposes, they are the underdog right now, to me at least. So who do I want to win? I'm a big Joe Burrow fan. I think that, he will assert himself as it if he can win the title this year. If he can win a Super Bowl this year, go to the Super Bowl in back-to-back years, what makes him any different than Mahomes? Nothing, especially if he beats him to get there again. So do I want the Bengals? Yes. Does it scare me that I think a lot of people think the Bengals are going to win? Also, yes. So I think my absolute gut, believe it or not, I think is telling me the Chiefs are going to win this ball game. But I'm not going to pick against the Bengals because I like them too much. I love T. Higgins. I love Jamar Chase. I've owned him the last 3 years in since his rookie year. This is his second year, I guess? Yeah. And just, I can see them losing, but I really am hoping they don't. So that's what I got. I got Joey B, and I got Jalen Hurts. Two of the best guys, two of the best leaders that I've seen in the NFL. So for young quarterbacks, as young quarterbacks go. So that's really all I got in terms of the games later today. I'll break them down more on my first live show as I was describing on Tuesday. But let's get into some other quick NFL talk, which mostly is going to be the New York Jets. And I know we're talking about 4 great franchises. We just switch gears to the Jets. But if the Jets do not acquire Aaron Rodgers, Nathaniel Hackett signing has to be the most Jets signing I've ever heard of in my life. This is a guy, I understand this isn't a head coaching position. This is an OC job, but he just fully embarrassed himself in front of the world as the Denver head coach. Truly, like Adam Gase-esque, okay? What makes the Jets, what makes this front office, what makes multiple front offices over the last 10 years, what makes Woody Johnson, what makes all of the Johnsons, what makes them attracted to guys who just are flat out not good? It doesn't make any sense to me. Now, again, you get Aaron Rodgers, I'll be speaking a different tune. I'll be singing a different tone. I'll be humming a different tone. I'll be whistling a different tone. But for now, all I'm seeing is Nathaniel Hackett, and it's a joke, okay? I don't care what he did with Rodgers back in the day, okay? It's Aaron Rodgers, okay? Stephen Hawking could have run a good offense with Aaron Rodgers, okay? So to just see this signing, it was just a shot to my gut because I was like, you know what? We did turn a new leaf. The roster's talented. I don't love Saleh, but I'll deal with it. Douglas sounds like he gets it. Last draft was very good. Woody Johnson sounds like he's a little desperate. It felt like we were over that little hump of like, we're not going to take this normal Jets bullshit, and yet, boom, you sign Hackett. Now, again, I don't want to speak too soon because if they get Rodgers, then all bets are off. But for now, it's just a complete joke to me. Now, let's fully switch gears and talk baseball, my favorite sport, because boy, oh boy, do I have some thoughts about the Baseball Hall of Fame. So I want to make this clear, first of all. I do not want to disrespect Scott Rolen. He's I don't know him. Well, obviously, I don't personally know him, but I never knew his persona as a player. I knew him very well as a player, but not like his personality. And over the last couple of days, he seems like a very, very nice guy. To hear him and to hear his family story about when he got the call that he's in the hall and all that stuff is awesome. Now I'm going to proceed to smoke him. Scott Rolen's not a Hall of Famer. Bottom line. Period, end of sentence, okay? All I got to tell you, let's not overthink things. I don't want to hear about WAR. I don't want to hear about OPS plus. I don't want to hear any of that. This is what I want to tell you. Scott Rolen was in the top 13 MVP voting once in his whole career. That's not a Hall of Famer. I don't care what you say. When I think of a Hall of Famer, and I think what the definition of a Hall of Famer is, it is a player who transcends his generation and is a player who stuck out as one of the best players of his generation, okay? How can you tell me that a guy has only been an MVP candidate in the top 13 ranks once in his career is one of the best players in the league? He's not. When I heard the news that he was a Hall of Famer, my knee-jerk reaction, as most people in the world who breathe oxygen, was, okay, amazing fielder, pretty good bat, above average bat. That's it. Not Hall of Famer in any way, shape, or form. And to hear all these baseball writers, and we're going to get to the baseball writers in a second, but to hear the thing I'm hearing now that's pathetic, I keep hearing he's a great base runner. They're like defending him. It's great. He was a great base runner. He worked hard. Give me a fucking break, okay? Are you joking? Tim LeCastro is a great base runner. Tony Womack was a great base runner. Sean Figgins was a great base runner. That doesn't mean anything. That means nothing to me. If the reason why Scott Rolen, who was not a speedster, is getting to the Hall of Fame is because he was a good fielder at third base, which is a relatively inathletic position, and doesn't have much bearing on the game in terms of a lot of guys who are good fielders, aka shortstops and second basemen with range, and even first basemen can move over to third base. The fact that he is getting in is a joke to me with that MVP stat I gave you. So it frustrated me off the rip. And then you think about how these baseball writers have some racket because I don't want to die on the Jeff Kent hill because I'd be lying if I told you I gave a shit less than a week ago. But the bottom line is, objectively, Jeff Kent has the most home run. And you can check me on this, but I'm like 99.99999% sure. Jeff Kent has the most home runs and RBIs as a second baseman in the history of baseball. It's more than Joe Morgan. It's more than any second baseman you could think of. He has the most ever. Done. Period. End of sentence. He has the most. He is now off the ballot, not a Hall of Famer. He also was a guy who escaped the steroid era without any type of allegation to be on steroids. You're going to tell me that Scott Rolen, who again has not finished in the top 13 in MVP voting more than once in his entire career, who by any stretch of the imagination was never one of the best players of his generation, is now a Hall of Famer? It's a disgrace. When I think of guys like Don Mattingly and even Keith Hernandez, they're better ball players. I mean, Don Mattingly, it's a disgrace. Don Mattingly is a much better ball player than Scott Rolen ever was or dreamed to be. Believe it or not, is his favorite player growing up. For good reason, because he was that good. Scott Rolen, great piece on a team, amazing fielder. Is he a Hall of Famer? Fuck no. So, again, I don't want to disrespect Scott Rolen because he's a nice guy and he had a great career and I'm happy for him and all that type of stuff, but just know this is more than the baseball writers. They're ruining the sanctity of the Baseball Hall of Fame, and that upsets me because baseball is all we have left, in my opinion. Football is great too, but baseball is slowly being ruined, and I'll tell you a specific personality who's doing it. So I was watching MLB Network. This was yesterday. And MLB Tonight, Brian Kenny was hosting. Love Brian Kenny. Is he a little crazy with the analytics and stuff? Yes. I side with Chris Russo a lot because I think he uses much more common sense. But no doubt in anyone's mind, if you're talking about boxing or you're talking about baseball, Brian Kenny knows what he's talking about, okay? He has Keith. I cannot even believe this. I can't even believe this. He has Keith Law on. Okay, baseball writer, everyone knows him. He has Keith Law on, and Keith Law proceeds to say, we're not overthinking things, that Jeff Kent, because he wasn't a good fielder, isn't a Hall of Famer, and that Scott Rolen should be, and then they get on the topic of, which is amazing. I'm so happy he said this, just to show the world, just to expose what these baseball writers, they've never even watched the sport in their lives. This is like when you see, like when Jesse James makes the catch on the goal line against New England, or you see Des Bryant's catch, or you see any of these catches in the NFL, where even the game, the catch by Jamar Chase against Buffalo last week, in every instant in the history of the world, those were catches. Now we are overthinking everything to a point where it's ruining the sport. So we're overthinking this, where Keith Law is now saying, yeah, I voted for Alex Rodriguez in the past, but I'm not. I voted for Manny Ramirez maybe once or twice. But listen, Manny Ramirez, because of his ethics and morals, which, okay, listen, I have no problem with that. If because Manny Ramirez has some domestic violence issues, you don't want to vote him in, fine. But then Keith Law proceeds to say this. He says that if Manny Ramirez never even took steroids and still had the same statistics as he has currently, that at best he was a borderline Hall of Famer, and that he was never even in his top 10 in voting, besides 1 year. Manny Ramirez, okay, I grew up watching Manny Ramirez my whole life. I'm a diehard Yankees fan, as everyone knows. Manny Ramirez is probably a top 3 hitter I've ever watched play the sport of baseball. Manny Ramirez has a .313 career batting average. He has 555 home runs, okay? He has some of the most pivotal performances in basically one of the more historic periods in baseball, which was the Red Sox breaking the curse and moving on forward from that, okay? For you to be a baseball writer and to tell me that, steroids aside, let's say they didn't exist, Manny Ramirez is a borderline Hall of Famer, that is genuinely insulting to me as a baseball fan, that you can sit up there and have a vote for the Hall of Fame that I care about when you have clearly never watched an inning be played in the history of the game, in the history of your life. You've never done it. Then he goes on to say, to dig himself even further, that Carlos Beltran is a no-doubt Hall of Famer, which I agree with. But if Carlos Beltran is a no-doubter Hall of Famer, borderline first ballot Hall of Famer, what in the world stats are you looking at about Manny Ramirez? It is scary that people like this have a clout in the industry, and that he's on MLB Network talking to Brian Kenny and the gang. Okay, so that's my 2 cents about the Baseball Hall of Fame, more specifically with Keith Law and Manny Ramirez, and just Scott Rolen in general, the whole fiasco. And I do feel bad for Scott Rolen. I know I've said it twice. I'll say it again. I feel bad for him because he's a nice guy and he was a great player. But let's get real here. And also, this is the last thing I'll say too. Guys like A-Rod and Clemens, we all know they're not getting in. But now guys like Gary Sheffield are getting 55% of the vote. And I love Sheffield. Come on. That was my era when I grew up as a Yankees fan. Gary Sheffield, who we all know took steroids. 55%. He's going to get in now? He's going to get in, but now A-Rod's no good to get in, okay? I mean, guys like Clemens and guys like, I'll say it, guys like Bonds. I mean, come on now. I mean, this is just, we're thinking too far into this. We're thinking too deep. All these fucking analytic bullshit, okay? Scott Rolen's not a Hall of Famer. Done. And to think about that argument, I called into the fan. I called into WFAN. I talked to Chris McMonagle about this, and he couldn't agree more. He couldn't agree more about all of it. And my one friend said that I was trying to hijack the show. But hey, buddy, listen. I'm getting on the radio. I'm talking. Okay, so he was talking to me, and I was like, oh, fuck, I got to listen to him talk, and I got to kind of let him run the thing. So I was trying to butt in, and it was working. I wasn't being disrespectful, but it's funny. It's funny. I have a recording of it, so when I inevitably host a show on The Fan in a couple of years, I'll say, hey, this is the first time I've been back on The Fan since I called in as a young buck. And that's pretty much all I got. So I'm going to do a summary of my picks for next week for a little TikTok clip. And before I do that, actually, I'm looking at my notes here. Last thing, because this has to do with sports. Doesn't have to do with sports, but it kind of does. So if you watch TV over the last month or so, specifically if you're watching sports, there's a lot of commercial breaks. You've probably seen the Paul Giamatti Verizon Einstein commercial where he's with the frizzy hair going, "Oh, not so smart. Oh." How many times am I going to see that commercial? How much money does Verizon have? They're pumping it in. It's almost as much money as the other commercial that every 5 seconds I got to hear, expired. I hear that every fucking second too. It's unbelievable, these commercials. Could we get some variety? I don't mind a good commercial. My buddy, actually, my buddy's older brother was the actor who says, "And can I get a hot tub?" on the State Farm shit. But to hear Paul Giamatti, it's like, bro, dude, you were a big actor, my guy. Come on. I think he has an Oscar, I believe. He played a lot of big roles. I mean, none bigger than Big Fat Liar. No, but seriously. Played a lot of big roles. I mean, that's where he's stooping down to now. He's playing Albert Einstein with a corny fucking impression of his accent. Doesn't even sound like, I don't even know what Albert Einstein sounds like, but that's not what he sounds like. Let's put it that way. All right, then to do a quick summary, I hate to say it, but I got the Eagles in the early game. I just can't see a scenario, and I know I keep doubting Purdy, but how is he going to fare against the best defensive line in the NFL? Them breathing down his neck. You got the Eagles fans at the link throwing batteries at him from the stands. The police horses are running around in the parking lot, in the tailgate, in the pregame, fucking fending for their lives. I can't see San Francisco escaping that game with a W. And then, so I got the Birds. And then the next game, what a toughie, okay? We're looking at the two best quarterbacks in the NFL. Josh Allen is now in Tier 2. Make no mistake, he's in Tier 2. And even though Kansas City is the favorite in Vegas, I think the sentiment is around the Bengals being the favorites, and that scares me, but I got to take the Bengals because I love Joey Cool a little too much. So, yes, we got a Bengals-Birds Super Bowl. It's going to be a good one, and we'll get to that, hopefully, who I think is going to win that after these two games transpire later on today. So enjoy yourselves, everybody, and be safe out there, and fuck yeah, bang, yeah. Signing off, Johnny Kith. Goodbye.